And Rachel Zegler, being 23 or whatever she is, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infantada is the only global solution. So the two stars hate each other. And then they couldn't put dwarfs because this is just so typical of the left. The progressive always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarves want to work.
But it's hard. And it's lonely. It's very lonely. I just know that if that loneliness can exist, so can other things, and I will be okay.
It seemed like the constant talk about wokeness was finally winding down. But then Rachel Zegler, the actress playing Snow White in Disney's latest remake, brought it all back into focus. These days, simply acting in a movie is no longer enough. Now, actors feel the need to use every interview as an opportunity to preach about how everything that happened before 2016 was wrong and outdated. Mars, however, does not just brush off these kinds of comments. He takes it head-on and completely dismantles it. In this video, we are going to break down how Mars reacted to Zegler's take on the Snow White movie and the issues many people have with it. There is a lot to cover, so let's dive right in. When the news first broke about Disney's live-action Snow White, there were high expectations. After all, the original animated film is a beloved classic. It holds a special place in the hearts of many people around the world. Disney's remakes have been a hit or miss, but people were still hopeful that Snow White would be another fun and magical movie. However, things took an unexpected turn when Zegler, the actress cast as Snow White, began sharing her personal views in public. The trouble started when Zegler used social media to publicly express her support for Palestine. This sparked a lot of reactions from the public, especially considering her co-star, Gal Gadot, who plays the Evil Queen, is a former member of the Israeli Defense Forces. The internet, as expected, did what it does best, created a storm. Some reports even suggested that Gadot received threats, forcing Disney to increase security around her and her family. When Zegler was asked about the situation, instead of backing down or offering a neutral stance, she doubled down. Instead of letting the tension fade away, she made things more complicated. This, of course, upset a lot of people, and the backlash began to grow. It was clear that the situation was spiraling, and the movie, which should have been a fun family experience, was becoming surrounded by controversy. At this point, many began to wonder if Disney and Zegler truly understood the damage their actions were causing. Instead of focusing on making the movie enjoyable for all, they were caught up in promoting a political agenda. This decision seemed to overshadow the essence of what Snow White was supposed to be, an innocent, magical story that people of all ages could enjoy. The problem didn't stop with Zegler's tweets. It became clear that the movie itself was being reshaped to fit certain progressive ideals, even at the cost of the story's core values. In an attempt to be inclusive, the film decided to use CGI to portray the seven dwarfs, instead of casting actors with dwarfism. The reason? They didn't want to reinforce stereotypes. However, this decision raised even more questions. How is it better to use animated dwarfs than to hire actual actors who have dwarfism and are capable of portraying the characters? In Nori. The end, this move seemed to take away opportunities from a group of actors who already struggle to find work in Hollywood. This, many argued, was the opposite of inclusivity. Instead of embracing a balanced approach that could allow everyone to feel represented, Disney appeared to be more focused on making sure they didn't upset the wrong crowd. They were more interested in fitting into the mold of modern-day political correctness than telling a good story. And it wasn't just the casting choices. It was clear that the film was being used as a platform to push social justice themes. While social justice is important, the movie seemed to forget that its primary purpose was to entertain, not preach. Audiences began to feel that the film was less about Snow White and more about an agenda. As the drama continued to unfold, Mars, known for his sharp commentary, responded in his signature style. He took aim at Zegler and the movie, criticizing how the focus had shifted away from storytelling and into the realm of activism. Mars is the type of person who does not sit back and tolerate what he sees as nonsense. He made it clear that he was not interested in seeing his favorite childhood stories being hijacked for a political agenda. According to him, the focus should be on entertainment, not on pushing the latest social movement. He made it clear that he believed audiences were getting fed up with being lectured. As the situation became more heated, Zegler released a public apology. It was a clear attempt to calm the storm and regain some of the goodwill that had been lost. In her apology video, she expressed feelings of loneliness and distress. She said, "It's hard and it's lonely. It's very lonely. I just know that if that loneliness can exist, so can other things, and I will be okay." While it may have seemed like a sincere response, many people saw it as a half-hearted attempt to clean up a mess created by her own words. The truth is, it felt more like a damage control strategy than a genuine moment of reflection. The problem with Zegler's apology, and with Disney's response to the entire situation, is that they never really took a moment to look at the bigger picture. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were sorry that their actions had caused backlash, especially since it affected the success of the movie. People did not believe for a second that Zegler or Disney had genuinely learned anything from this experience. It seemed more like they were trying to avoid losing more fans and money. This situation is a perfect example of how the entertainment industry, especially big companies like Disney, often gets caught up in the latest trends and social movements without considering the consequences. While it is important for media to reflect the world we live in, it is equally important to remember that entertainment should be fun and inclusive, not a platform for political debates. When studios forget this, they risk alienating their audience. Disney had focused on making a movie that was true to the spirit of the original Snow White. Perhaps they would not be facing such a backlash. People want to enjoy a magical world, not be lectured about social issues. In the end, Disney's choice to prioritize wokeness over storytelling has clearly affected the movie's success. With a reported budget of $270 million, Snow White has only grossed $96 million so far, and experts suggest it will need at least $500 million to break even. It seems like the audience has spoken, and they are not interested in watching a movie that feels more like a political lecture than a fairy tale. So, in the end, it is clear that Disney's experiment with using a beloved childhood classic as a platform for social justice has not paid off. If they want to save future projects, they will need to remember that the primary goal of a movie is to entertain, and not to push an agenda. People want to enjoy their childhood stories without feeling like they are being lectured. If Disney doesn't learn this lesson, they might continue to lose the support of their audience.
Rachel Zegler, being 23 or whatever she is, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infantata is the only global solution. So the two stars.
I will play the clip in a moment, but first, let me explain the situation in a very simple way for anyone who, like Mars's guests, has no idea what is going on. Rachel Zegler plays Snow White in Disney's new movie, and Gal Gadot plays the evil Queen. That sounds simple, right? But before the movie even came out, Zegler started posting on social media to show her support for Palestine. This is where the trouble started. Gal Gadot was a soldier in the Israeli Defense Forces, and as expected, the internet went crazy. Some reports even said that Gadot got threats, and because of that, Disney had to increase security for her and her family. When Zegler was asked if she had caused problems, and maybe even put her co-star in danger, she did not change her words. She stood by what she said. So, that is the story behind the clip we just watched. Now, let us go back to Mars and see how he responded.
Then they couldn't put dwarfs because this is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarfs want to work. And
maybe the so-called woke left should stop calling themselves progressive and just admit they are moving backward. The level of nonsense here is too much. We all grew up loving Snow White, and I am very sure the original writers had nothing to do with modern woke ideas. But now they have decided that we cannot even have real dwarfs in Snow White because, wait for it, they did not want to show stereotypes. So what did they do instead? They replaced the dwarfs with computer-made characters. Great idea, right? No, it is not. I also could not believe it. Somehow, Hollywood thinks that using fake animated dwarfs instead of hiring real actors with dwarfism is the right thing to do. Here is the truth. It is not. If anything, it takes away acting jobs from people who already find it very hard to get roles in movies. And that, everyone, is Disney's idea of being fair, removing real people from jobs while giving themselves a big round of applause for being progressive. But it gets even worse. Here is a clip of Rachel Zegler talking about being woke. Get ready, because this is going to be very hard to watch.
Tell us a little bit about your version of Snow White.
Yeah, I mean, Snow White is the girl you remember, but she's definitely made for the modern age. And there's such an emphasis on what it really means to be the fairest of them all. And for Snow White, it's coming to terms with finding herself and finding her inner voice and finding a sense of agency so that she can be a just ruler and a wonderful queen, because there's another one in town who's...
Did you hear the sarcasm in her voice? The clear shade she is throwing at her co-star, Gal Gadot? Oh, it is definitely there. To Rachel Zegler, Gal is not just another actress. She represents old conservative ideas that Zegler and others believe should be removed. And who is leading the way into this new woke world? Rachel Zegler, of course. Talk about being out of touch with reality. But here's the problem with the woke crowd. They are not just disconnected from reality. They are also cruel. In their world, if anyone dares to question what they believe, that person is not just wrong. They become an enemy who must be taken down. We will get into that more in a moment, but first, let me play another clip of Rachel Zegler doing what she does best, talking nonsense as if it is her full-time job. I warned you, and now here we are, stuck in another uncomfortable situation. I told you to prepare for something cringeworthy, and it looks like we are deep into yet another woke disaster. It is honestly frustrating to see how the woke left feels the need to ruin everything. I mean, we all grew up with Snow White. We loved it for what it was, a simple, timeless fairy tale. It wasn't about politics or deep societal messages. It was just a good story. But now, someone has decided to make everything about something else. Someone sat down and thought, maybe this prince is just a creepy stalker. And suddenly, that's the narrative being pushed. Snow White is no longer a beautiful love story. It's now being presented as a tale of oppression hidden behind an animated film. The prince, once seen as a hero, is now just another straight white guy who is crossing boundaries. But the woke crowd does not stop there. They are not content with just one story. No, they want to rewrite everything. They want to change the way we see every classic tale. Forget the romance. Forget the happiness that came with those stories. Now, every single story has to have a lesson in social justice. They want to control what we see, hear, and even feel. It's as if they are telling us that every piece of entertainment must fit into their version of the world. Forget the stories that made us feel good or gave us a sense of wonder. Forget the fairy tales we loved as children. Now, everything has to be about teaching us something, making us feel guilty, or making us question old traditions. Honestly, it has become so hard to enjoy anything these days. What used to be fun, lighthearted, or inspiring is now being turned into something completely different. The magic is gone, replaced by lectures. I find myself asking, why can't we just enjoy a simple story for what it is? It feels like the joy has been taken away. What happened to just having a fairy tale where a prince rescues a princess and they live happily ever after? That was enough. We didn't need to dive into the political implications of the prince's actions or question every decision he made. But now, with this new way of thinking, even the most innocent stories are being twisted. The focus is no longer on the adventure, the love, or the magical world these stories took us to. Instead, it's about making everything fit a certain narrative, one that is dictated by a particular set of beliefs and views. It's frustrating because these stories were always meant to take us to a different world, a place where we could forget our troubles and just enjoy the adventure. But now, every movie, every piece of entertainment feels like it has to be a statement, like it has to teach us something. It's no longer enough to just tell a good story. There has to be a hidden agenda or a lesson to be learned. It's as if the stories are being forced into a mold that they were never meant to fit into. This shift is not only affecting fairy tales like Snow White, it's happening across the board, in almost every aspect of entertainment. Whether it's movies, TV shows, or even books, the pressure to turn everything into a social justice lecture is overwhelming. What happened to just enjoying a movie or a story for the sake of fun? What happened to being entertained without being constantly bombarded with messages about how we should think or feel? I understand that times change, and with those changes come new ideas and new ways of thinking. But there's something about this shift that feels forced. It's as if the magic of storytelling is being replaced by a constant need to teach, lecture, and criticize. It's no longer about creating something that people can enjoy and relate to on a simple level. Instead, it's about pushing an agenda, about making sure that every word, every scene fits a certain narrative. And let's be clear, I'm not against progress or change, but there's something about the way this change is being forced that feels off. It's as if the joy of the stories is being sacrificed for the sake of being politically correct or socially aware. We are losing the innocence and the magic that these tales once brought us. Instead of enjoying a story for what it is, we are now expected to view everything through a political lens, always questioning and analyzing every aspect of the plot. Tucker. The end of the day, people just want to escape into a world of imagination. They want to be entertained, to be inspired, to be swept away by a good story. But instead of that, we are being bombarded with messages that often feel like they are trying to change the way we think, act, and view the world. It's no longer enough to enjoy something for what it is. Now, everything has to be about making a statement, about pushing an agenda. It's disappointing, really. I miss the days when we could just enjoy a movie or a fairy tale for the simple pleasure it brought. But now, it seems like every story has to carry a message, a lesson, a deep meaning. And while there's nothing wrong with storytelling that challenges us or makes us think, there's also nothing wrong with just telling a good story that people can enjoy, without the need for constant analysis or political commentary. In the end, it feels like we are losing something precious. The simplicity, the magic, and the wonder that these stories once provided are being replaced by a more complex, often divisive narrative. And it's sad because sometimes all we really want is to be entertained, to escape from reality for a while, and to enjoy a good story without having to think too hard about it. I cannot wait for the day when movies are made just for entertainment again, not to push any agendas. I miss the time when studios cared about telling good stories instead of trying to please activists. At this rate, if the woke crowd keeps rewriting history, we will need fairy tales just to remember what normal life looked like. Now, if you think Rachel Zegler's strange behavior started only recently, you are in for a surprise. Take a look at the tweet she sent when Donald Trump won the election. She said, "I find myself speechless in the middle of all this. Another 4 years of hatred, leading us toward a world I would not want to live in. A world that would be difficult to raise my daughter in. A world that could force my daughter to have a baby she does not want. Leading us toward a world full of fear." I should not be this shocked, but I am. I am heartbroken for my friends who woke up with fear this morning. I am here with you to cry, to yell, to hug, and to talk about how the left continues to fail us in creating a new way forward. This loss, it should not have happened, and it certainly should not have happened by so many votes. I agree with Ethel Kane's statement more than anything. Trump supporters, Trump voters, and Trump himself should never know peace. So Rachel Zegler is not just your average woke activist. She is someone who is completely over the top, on a mission to destroy babies. In her perfect world, life only begins at birth. Anything before that is just a meaningless bunch of cells. Nothing to care about, right? I always thought grandmothers were supposed to be excited, even overjoyed to see their daughters give birth. That is the normal thing in almost every culture. But apparently, in the new woke world, pregnancy is now seen as some kind of heavy burden that should be pushed aside, like an annoying Amazon package. It is really strange how the same people who talk about protecting life in every other way, whether it is saving trees, stray cats, or even fictional characters, completely forget about real living babies. If Disney keeps choosing wokeness over good storytelling, they will end up with empty theaters and lose their audience. This brings us to the end of today's video. If you liked it, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.